2024 meeting of the Coldwater City Council to order. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Rissman.
Present.
Councilmember Mackin.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Kanakis absent. Councilmember Beckwith.
Here.
Councilmember Petsko.
Here.
Councilmember Hazelbaker.
Here.
Councilmember Houts.
Here.
And Mayor Kramer.
I'm here. We've heard from Councilman Kanak. He's unable to attend. We look for a motion to excuse him.
Motion to excuse.
Thanks, Travis. Thanks, Mike. We have a motion. We have support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Jim is excused. We have a spot on our agenda now, and we have one at the end of the meeting for public comments. So if anyone would like to address the council, they may do so now or at the end of the meeting.
Hi, I'm Karen Klein. As far as the Planning Commission regular minutes, I wasn't sure if that's anything that's going to be discussed tonight or not, but I had some questions regarding that. And then regarding the wellhead water protection area. Thanks.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move to our consent agenda. These are items we consider to be routine. We'll take them in one motion unless someone up here or someone in the audience wants an item removed for further discussion or clarification. Tonight on our consent agenda are our minutes of January 22nd, our closed session minutes of January 22nd, our DDA authority minutes of December 20th, our Coldwater Public Library Advisory Board minutes of January 8th, Planning Commission minutes of January 15th, our BPU minutes of January 3rd, South Central Power Agency minutes of December 7th, our BPU financial statement for December of 23, our financial reports for December of 23, and our police activity report for the fourth quarter of 2023. Those are the items on our consent agenda. Would anybody in the council like anything removed for further clarification? Anybody up here? We'd look for a motion then to approve our consent agenda, please.
So moved. Support.
Thanks, Randall. Thanks, Mike.
I asked that number 4 be further.
Okay, we'll approve the consent agenda minus item 4. Is that okay, Randall and Mike?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Okay, I guess, Mrs. Klein, what were your questions about the Planning Commission minutes? I'm not sure we can answer them publicly, but we can hear the questions.
Thank you very much, sir, Your Honor, Mr. Mayor. And I just had questions about the water wellhead protection area. I don't know what the Planning Commission has come up with as far as locating a lithium battery storage facility in that area. So, thanks.
I'm sure the city manager or the utility director could address your question after the meeting, Mrs. Klein. I guess now we'd look for a motion to approve the Planning Commission minutes of January 15th.
So moved.
Thank you, Randall. Support. Thank you, John. We have motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Bills and accounts, they're asking us to approve $302,168. Every detail is posted on the website for us or anyone in the public to review. Questions about the bills and accounts? How about a motion to pay them?
So moved.
Thanks, John.
Support.
Thanks, Chad. We have motion, we have support to pay our bills. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Bills are paid. Number 11, city manager report. Keith.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council, good evening, everyone. So just a few reminders and notices for this evening, first of which is the 2024 property tax assessment notices will be going out at the end of this week and received by the public the beginning of next week. And for those that have questions related to their property assessments, they can contact our city's assessor's office and or potentially apply and bring their concerns to the March Board of Review, which will be held this year on March 11th, 12th, and 13th. So any questions related to their property or property assessments can be directed to the city assessor's office in neighborhood services. We had a successful night with the daddy-daughter dance this past weekend, and now we have coming up the mom and son night, which will be held on Saturday, March 16th at the Dr. Brown Recreation Center. And so we're encouraging families to register for that event as well. Next, I'd like to just address with the nice weather that we've had. There again, we don't have snow cover, which usually occurs this time of year. And with the mild weather, residents are reminded to keep their properties cleared of items and vehicles parked appropriately. Just some reminders that vehicles must be operable and are not allowed to be parked on the grass in the front yard. We ask that residents do their part to keep Coldwater an attractive community in which to live. We had last week our first session for the Citizens Academy. We have 16 registered participants, and just today we had another family wish to join, so a couple more will be added to that for our second session this week. Our second session is going to be conducted at the Municipal Services Department Garage at 45 Industrial Avenue, and council members are always welcome to attend. And there'll be presentations on municipal services and on neighborhood services, and then a tour of the facility out there. And lastly, this time of year, we're usually concerned about snow melt and rain and the potential for flooding. And so we do an annual flood awareness notice. And just to make people aware that the city of Coldwater does participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. And so for those properties that might have susceptibility to flooding, that insurance through the NFIP is available, and that they should contact their individual homeowners policy agent to pursue that. But we do have areas that are susceptible to flooding at times, and it is always a recommended coverage to have, particularly Pilot Knob and properties along the Sauk River. Any information that you'd like to have that residents can obtain about the city's floodplain and the NFIP can be directed towards the city's Neighborhood Services Department. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Any questions for Keith?
We are not doing yard waste pickup yet, are we? Because I have an paper that's stuck like 20 bags out there.
I saw that, and I think with the weather, I mean, we'll attempt to get that as time permits, but we would otherwise be shoveling and plowing, and we're doing lots of other things, which helps us catch up. But we did notice that as well. And there's also some people we would encourage people not to yet, because we're just not geared up for that yet. But we can get to it as time permits. And I also saw somebody raking a pile of leaves, so I know that the weather has been very conducive to fall and spring work as opposed to winter.
Any other questions for Keith? We would look for a motion to approve the city manager report then.
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Scott.
Support.
Thanks, Travis. We have motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? City manager report approved. Number 12, letter from Linda Schaefer regarding a request for a charitable gambling license.
So as with any public organization that wishes to do a fundraising event that requires a license from the state of Michigan, they have to bring that to you as a council to approve. And so the Branch Area Rescue Coalition is requesting your approval for, I believe it's bingo at the Hope Church, and the date of that would be April 13th. And they're seeking your approval for their application for a license through the State Gaming Commission.
Okay.
Motion to adopt resolution 2412.
Support.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, John. We have motion and support to approve Linda's request. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Linda. Good luck. Number 13 is a letter from Shauna regarding the Library Memorial Fund expenditure request. Who's doing this?
You want-
Or Megan, actually.
I know Shauna didn't necessarily want to, so you have a request from the City of Coldwater Library Advisory Board to utilize some of the funding that they have in the amount of $2,000 to facilitate a project to create a scrapbook for the history of the former Coldwater State Home and Training Center, which is now the site of the Lakeland and Florence Crane Correctional Facility. So with that, it requires your approval for the use of those funds. I believe the resolution identified what the current balance of the account is in the neighborhood of $143,500 for that. And that's their recommendation is for your authorization to proceed with that. And we would just have to have Councilmember Hazel Baker abstain because he's the one that would, if approved, be producing the scrapbook. If you want to make any reference to what the actual project is or how that.
Yeah, they approached me on a project because they get a lot of questions on the public state school and I have a vast collection of photographs and already text that's been written about the history of the building. They'd kind of like put it all together so that when somebody comes to the Heritage Room and have a question, they can hand them the book. Interestingly enough, through modern technology, they'll be able to digitize the whole scrapbook and put it on a flash drive. I think they call them flash drives. I don't know. And so if your relative either worked there or lived there, you could actually get a copy of the whole thing. So,
Put it up online
yeah,
also?
yeah.
So I guess first we can look for a motion to excuse Randall from this vote.
So moved.
Michael,
Support.
is that John?
Yeah.
We have a motion from Mike, or John, to excuse Randall from this vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, now the request itself, what's your inclination?
To have Randall create a book.
So you'd move to adopt resolution 2410?
24-10.
That would be much better worded, John. So
I thought so.
do we have support for that?
I'll support.
Travis, thank you. Okay, we have motion, we have support. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Scrapbook is created. Number 14, a letter from Keith Baker regarding the 4th of July fireworks contract.
Thank you, Your Honor. This would be our annual time at which we approve the contract with the Pyrotechnics Company and authorize the funding, the city's funding for the support of that. The Coldwater Noon Club, the Coldwater Township Sunrise Rotary Club, and the Coldwater Board of Public Utilities all contribute to this event. And beginning last year, we took over the administration, if you will, of the event, and our liability insurance coverage provides the policy and umbrella over that. So we're just seeking your approval to proceed with the fireworks display on July 4th and the city's contribution of $6,000 to that event.
Motion to adopt resolution 2411 and approve agreement 24-4.
Thank you, Chad.
Support.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, we have fireworks here. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. 15 is a letter from Keith regarding the first budget amendment for the fiscal year 23-24.
Thank you, Your Honor. There again, it's this time of year where we do our first budget amendment with we're just over the halfway point of our current fiscal year. And I don't want to steal Tom's thunder because he actually prepared the information. So I'll let him go over the changes that are proposed to the budget, both on the revenue and expense side.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Got kind of all the highlights listed in the memo. Essentially what we're doing remember we do 2 amendments generally every year, this being our first amendment. Our goal with the first amendment is to basically go through the first half of the year, essentially true things up. Hey, what have we received additional or less? And the same thing on the expenditure side. So we've gone through and made adjustments to state shared revenue. We actually reduced our state shared revenue estimate to get it in line with what the Department of Treasury is forecasting for the year. Just the opposite of that with our interest revenue. We've been conservative. Interest rates on short-term money have been very good, as I think people are aware. So we've made a substantial increase to the estimate of our interest revenue. We're probably still being conservative there, honestly. We've had a number of sales of property during the year. Essentially, we've just gone through and everything that we've sold to date, we've made sure that that's included within our amendment. Same thing on the licenses and permits, because of the continued higher than average volume of construction locally, especially the apartments on Willowbrook. We've both increased the revenue estimates because we've gotten those fees have been received. We've also gone through, and that's something obviously we're paying licensed contractors to review. So we've increased the revenue by, I believe, $95,000, and we've increased the expenditures by about $50,000 to get them both in line. On the expenditure side, we had a couple positions that were hired after the budgets were adopted. So we've adjusted our budgets for those positions. That's in there. And then as far as if we're thinking about our fleet maintenance, so we've gone through, I think we're all aware about the supply chain difficulties. When they realized they were going to have a longer period of time getting some vehicles, we've gone through, they spent additional money on one of the older international trucks, as well as the old garbage truck that we have that we use for leaf collection. So spent additional money on both of those, knowing that replacements for those vehicles were farther out in the future. And then related to that, the international truck that I believe that we ordered in the fall of 22, we thought would arrive within so we ordered it during the 2003 fiscal year, thinking it would arrive in the 2024 fiscal year. Now we're understanding that it won't arrive till next fall, hopefully before winter. So we've removed that truck out of the current budget. Now, when we are producing our 2025 budget, we will add it in there. Those are the highlights. Overall, the balance is about the same. We started off with a forecast of approximately a negative $512,000, and now we're at $524,000. But just so everybody understands, that includes the second half of that fire truck. So out of that $524,000, about $25,000 is related to that fire truck, which obviously was received in the fall and paid for. Happy to take any questions.
Questions for Tom? Not, they would like us to approve the first budget amendments as presented.
So moved.
Thanks, Randall.
Support.
Thanks, John. If no other questions, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Budget amendment approved. Thanks, Tom.
Right, thanks.
Number 16, a presentation by David Schmaltz regarding our 2023 annual fire department report. David?
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of council, again, thank you very much for the opportunity to come before you this evening to talk about the fire department. So it's exciting for us to be able to stand up in front of you and kind of present to you what we're very proud of. So tonight, what I'm looking to do is try to give you more of a huge overview, not so much dive too deep into it. Hopefully you had a chance to read the actual annual report to see some of that statistics. So tonight, what I'm going to go over, I'm going to hit a little bit on the highlights of 23, talk a little statistic stuff, talk a little bit about training, some prevention, and then some of the things that we got coming up planned for this year in 24. So the 2023 highlights, a couple of the ones that I wanted to highlight out here was some of the retirements that we had over this past year. Lieutenant Lance Johnson, Greg Sharp, and part paid firefighter Patrick Kelly, all put in well over 25 years with the department. Captain Sharp actually, which it's not noted here, we just noticed or logged his career years. He actually put about 5 to 6 years with us as a part paid firefighter. So he had well over 33, 34 years of service in the fire department with us. So we also lost 2 other firefighters through other reasons throughout the year. So although we're losing well over 100 years of experience in one quick swoop, the department has rotated over about a quarter now, and we hired a couple more guys, part pays that we had. We hired them on. They worked real hard for us, and they're back on the shift with us. And we brought in a guy out of Roscommon just recently, and he's doing very, very well for us. As Tom alluded to, we took delivery of the new engine back in December, mid-December, put it into service on the front line about 3 weeks ago. It's been a fantastic piece of equipment. I can't thank you enough for approving that for us. Just to give you a little overview on that truck, it holds a little over 1,300 gallons of water. It pumps 1,750 gallons a minute at draft, which means not on a hydrant if we're actually sucking water out of a tank. So it'll actually pump more than that if we're onto a hydrant. It does everything we need it to do. I'm very excited. It's actually worked very well at a few fires, not only in Quincy, but for us here. And very little issues that we anticipated with any type of a new vehicle. So again, thank you very much for that. The other thing that we purchased earlier last year in our effort to try to reduce cancer within the fire service was this SCBA gear washer. As I explained to you, if you can recall back about this time last year, is really what it looks like is a giant commercial dishwasher. And what that does is it actually cleans our SCBAs that we wear on our backs. They're very, very hard to clean if we were trying to do it manually with brushes and rags and things. We just could never get them super clean. The masks, and this machine also cleans boots, helmets, and gloves, a real deep clean. So we've been using that since about March. It was actually very scary the first couple times we ran the stuff through there to see the amount of grime that came off. Fantastic tool, very expensive, but we're the only one in the county that has anything like that. So again, thank you very much for that opportunity. And then I always like to highlight this. We're always proud of the amount of property that we do save throughout the year. So at the time of our incident, we had a little over 36,700,000 property, 36.7, and we saved about 36.1. So the job of what we do out there, they did fantastic. Couldn't be more pleased with the efforts they put in. So the statistics, that's kind of where a lot of people want to know about things, and statistics do tell some side of the story. So if you look at the first graph here, we ran about 1,351 calls for the year. Now that's total calls of what we responded to. As we go through some of these, I'm going to try to drill down a little bit deeper. That is a little bit up from 2022, about 3%. And the graph is kind of misleading, and I'll say this throughout my presentation. There's always the peaks and valleys, and if I was to spread that out, you'd see more of a differentiation between them. So we ran, roughly 40-some calls more this year than last. Now this graph here kind of breaks it out, and last year there was a few questions about how things are categorized. And these aren't any of the categories that we create. This actually comes from the federal government, the United States Fire Administration, at the different categories. And this is how we have to log them within our reports. So the question last year was like, what's a service call? Well, a service call would be like what we do for our lift assists, where we go out and actually help people up. Or say this past streak where we had that really cold weather, we got numerous calls for broken water pipes. So we'd go out, we'd help them secure that water, shut the water off for them, and so on and so forth. And then the good intent calls, we get those where maybe we've dispatched to the wrong location, or somebody calls in and says they think they got smoke in the neighborhood, and we actually show up and it's a dryer vent that might be pushing something off. So just to kind of give you an idea of how those things are categorized. But in the fire suppression line item there, we have 84 calls for this year. And the fire suppression one, and the best way I can define this for you is that's where there's a fire, where actually some sort of water, some sort of suppression was actually put on the event. So we're back up a little bit by about 14% on that one. And then the way this category is broken out in the next one for the rescue and EMS, that's not only EMS, but that's our vehicle accidents, so on and so forth. So later on in the slide, you'll see that our actual medical calls are a little bit on the lower side. So as we move on, this gives you a little bit better breakdown, a little more a visual of how each one of those are broken out. And like most departments throughout the country, EMS does take up the majority of our response. We're roughly at about 55% or 56% EMS for our department. The national average is about 65%. So we're a little bit lower on the EMS, a little bit higher on the other service areas. But I like to think that the pie chart kind of gives us a little bit better visualization of what that previous chart was showing us. The wards, I always like to show each of you what some of the activity that is going on within your representative areas. Ward 2 and Ward 4 are predominantly usually are more busier. Ward 2 being a lot of the commercial stuff out on the east side of town, and so on and so forth with the population density and again, so the commercial and industrial areas. For the first time, though, I wanted to see what we could get on a 5-year response to see if that changed anything, and it pretty much lined up with what I thought it was going to be with Ward 4 and Ward 2 still being the top 2 contenders for the majority of our responses. We do protect two townships, Girard and Coldwater, and as well as we do the mutual aid stuff. So this year we did 99 calls out to Coldwater Township, 35 to Girard, and then we did 17 mutual aid calls. With the mutual aid calls, that also includes the automatic aid that we have with Quincy, which is an outstanding partnership that we have with that department. I can honestly say that going there and them coming to us, we've saved each other's bacons a few times. It's been fantastic. Our working relationships has improved over the years, where in years past, within the fire service, there's been that this is my line, don't cross it. We've definitely, as a county, have dropped that. We're far more quickly to call for mutual aid and help, and then develop those relationships, and we continue to push forward with that. So to continue to drill down, when we look at the suppression responses, you can see the peaks and valleys of what I was talking about. But from 2017, we've still been on an increase on the way up. And then in 2021, we hit the 90, and then we dropped into a valley, and then we moved back up again in 2023. It's hard for me to say why that happened that way. It's just one of those years. I know we were running a ton of Schmidt's foam until they got some of their ovens sorted out. And I believe that was in 21. But last year, it was pretty average for us, I felt. We were catching calls about once a week, if not a little bit more. And we always get asked, okay, so out of those 84 responses, how many were structures, how many so on and so forth. So that's what this graph shows us. So out of those 84, 40 of them were actually structure, cooking, or chimney fires. I didn't drill down any farther than that, but I think the important thing to show on this graph too is, but in the last 5 years, we're averaging about 40 or so more actual working fires throughout the year. So we're kind of leveled off a little bit. Of course, we'd love to see that drop. The best way to fight a fire is to prevent fire. So we're definitely trying to make some more pushes on that. Injuries, we had one civilian and one firefighter injury in 23. Our firefighter injury was a burn to the wrist, caught a little steam burn there. And then I be honest with you, I tried to look up what the civilian one was, and we switched reporting softwares, and I wasn't able to drill down into that to see. So, but again, no casualties, no fatalities whatsoever, which is fantastic. EMS, as I said, 65 or 55% of our calls. So in 2023, we ran 653 EMS calls, and that's what's your cardiac arrest, your difficulty breathings, chest pain, stuff like that. That is not our vehicle accidents or anything to that sort. We've seen a slow trend on the way down. I'm still going to equate that to the decision of the department to stop responding to facilities like Maple Lawn and those that have on-site medical staff. For years, we'd run to those and we'd get there, and those nurses had already kind of done what we would do. So I made the decision during the COVID years to say we're gonna stop doing that and keep our resources available for others. And I think it's proved to be beneficial. We haven't seen any sort of detriment to that decision whatsoever. Now, there are times where we would maybe say go to the Laurels, and that's just if life care isn't available and it would be a cardiac arrest, they'll tag us to jump on some of those. or even out into the townships on occasion. We'll go out to handle some of the EMS stuff if Life Care isn't available. So some of the highlights of the EMS calls, as you can see, they're pretty level as over the past couple of years. The difficulty breathing dropped off, but the one that we jumped back up again was with the lift assists. And yeah, it's hard to say. You know, population's getting older, people fall, and they lean on EMS to come and help lift them up. Sometimes we'll take them to the hospital, sometimes not. It's just sometimes just a pickup. Some of those I know are where Life Care wasn't available, and they hit us because it was a priority 3. We slide over, take care of it, and then move on. Oh, come on! Can you help me, Shauna? Quit on me. Oops, I'm sorry. Now I'm fighting with you.
Go ahead.
All right. So response times. Response times are important to us just because it gauges how long it's taken us to get there. Fires, as we keep going on, products are made more and more out of chemicals, oils, things like that. So fires are burning much faster. So for us, response times are critical to gauge. You know, we have the 6 minutes for brain death, so on and so forth. So when I start pulling response times, as you can see here, we're still averaging under 4 minutes in the city. But between 2022 and 2023, we've definitely gone up. And I've tried to figure out exactly why. And there's not one variable that I could say is the actual cause on why it looks like we're slower. I would say in the last 2 years, we've had some major road construction that has slowed us down. If you look at where I said where some of our responses, the highest ones, Ward 2, Ward 4, where we're heading out east of town, it's a little bit slower for us getting out because traffic has increased. It's not an exact science. So when we go en route, we key up on the radio, we tell the dispatcher we're en route. Now we're up to them of when they would actually hit the button to put us en route. So there is some delays with only 2 dispatchers out there. If they're super busy, sometimes I've seen where it's minutes before they've actually hit us en route. So although I use that number as a gauge, I do take it with some sort of plus or minus. And the only way that we could actually get it to where I would say is almost as scientific is if we were able to, within the apparatus, actually put ourselves en route off of our tablets. But at this time, we're just not ready to move forward. That the technology for us, we just don't feel is there to give us that accurate count. And then with Coldwater and Girard townships, particularly Girard, that number is going to jump all over the place, just simply where in that township that lands. And then when you only run 33 to 35 calls out there a year, it doesn't give you a huge range to get a good average. The overlapping calls, we're at 17%, but that stopped in October. And the reason it stopped in October is that's when I switched over. Well, I had to switch over to the new reporting software. And the new reporting software does not offer that capability for me to pull that report as of yet. And what I mean by overlapping calls would be if an engine or one of us are out on a call, the second one comes in while we're still engaged. So currently at the time when that does happen, if it's an EMS call for that second one, myself and the fire marshal would actually handle that response if the engine company is tied up. But I just think it's important to see that some of the numbers that we do get that overlapping. I'm hoping that this new reporting software will be able to eventually fill those gaps for me. Training, one of my biggest things that we try to do is push training. We can never be prepared enough for what we're going to encounter out in the world. Fires are not the place to be doing some OJT stuff. So we put in, again, a massive amount of hours. We try to get to meet the ISO requirement of 192 hours per firefighter, and we certainly exceed that. The reason I've highlighted this number, although it's not as high as it was in 21, we had actually less employees in 23. We had one firefighter that was off on injury the entire year. I had another firefighter that was off about 4 to 5 months for back surgery, and our part paid ranks were reduced significantly. So with what we did and the numbers we put up, it is actually very impressive, the amount of hours that the gentleman had put in. Moves on to the inspection, prevention, and investigation component of the department. And this is for the most made up of what the fire marshal does. His inspections increased by about 50, moved up to about 527. Our smoke alarm installs went up to from 61 to 96, which I thought was outstanding. The smoke detector program that we get, all those are donated to us through a program through the state of Michigan. So the more we get, the more we can get out, and we actually install those. If the citizen wants more than 2, we'll go put them in, and we do that for any of our response districts. And that goes the same with the carbon monoxide detectors. The reason for those being as low as they are, that's a supply and demand thing. They just don't get enough of those to hand out to us to be able to give out. And then we reached another 8,700 citizens, and that doesn't include the flyers that we put in twice a year into the BPU bill to try to hit as much people as we can as far as for the fire prevention. And we try to talk a little about storm warnings, things like that, depending on the time of the year. So some of the 2024 goals, what I'm hoping to tackle this year is this fire extinguisher trainer. Now, I say it's a goal, but just after the year ticked over, the fire marshal secured the last of the donations. So the partnership between us and the BPU, and then outside donations, we're able to raise about $15,000 for this fire extinguisher trainer, which is going to allow us to get into companies to teach them. One of the things that the fire marshal wants to do with the schools is to make sure that every graduating senior that leaves the school knows how to work a fire extinguisher. For those especially going off to college, we've seen an uptick in the last 10 years of fraternity and dormitory fires. So we want to make sure that our children, that when they leave, are well prepared to be able to do this. And then BPU is going to use that to also train their people. We just got it 2 weeks ago. It's really a neat tool, and it's going to make things a lot easier for us to get out and train. We're going to make a significant effort on vehicle extrication and stabilization. So the picture you see here was actually an accident out on 69 we had a few months ago. And we really want to focus on that part of our job now. Steel's been changing, the components of the vehicles are changing. We've got the EV stuff that we're worrying about. So over the next 6 months, we've made a concerted effort to spend countless hours starting to train on the vehicle extrication and the stabilization of those types of accidents. And then the last one is more of the offsite training. And what you're seeing here is a picture of it's called the Fire Department Training Network. It's outside of Indianapolis. It's one of the premier training sites in the country where you can send people to go down for 3 days and do nothing but fight fire, force doors, and train. So we have 8 of our 14 employees that are already scheduled to go down throughout the year for this type of a training. They're going to fight well over 20 fires in 3 days, which would take some of us 5 to 6 years to even see. So the experience that they're going to get, the training they're going to get is just off the charts. It's going to make our staff so much better. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions.
Great report, David. Questions? Steve? Pretty inclusive.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much.
No, good job. Thank you, David. We have a last spot for our agenda for public comments. Fred, you were patient enough to sit through that whole meeting. You better come up and next. Karen?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify that the concern I brought up about the wellhead protection area is not just an individual concern of mine to be answered off the record. What I'd like to do is ask the city council to inform the public about this issue, to let us know where we're at as far as the city annexing the area that Jupiter is going to be building on, and what type of precautions are going to be there. And I'm speaking for some pediatricians as well. If you remember the water quality issues in Flint, sometimes the pediatricians are the first ones to find out about health effects. So we want healthy water. And so we'd like to know, is there a concern in this regard? Are there any things that we need to worry about? I mean, what I'm picturing is we don't have to worry about volcanoes or earthquakes, but thunderstorms and tornadoes. So if there were a thunderstorm where lightning hits some of the lithium battery storage type facilities, and toxic fumes are released, the rainwater would then bring those toxic substances back to the ground. So perhaps if it was a tornado, it would just swoop them away somewhere into the never, never land. But yeah, I would like to see if the city council would keep us as the general public informed on where we're going with this. And has anyone entertained the thought that this is a wellhead protection area? Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Brett?
I just want to take a few minutes to introduce myself. I'm Fred Blankenship. I'm going to be a Republican candidate for sheriff on the August primary. I've been at the sheriff's office for over 28 years. Done a little bit of everything there: road patrol, corrections, court officer, investigator with the prosecutor's office. I'm currently the captain, the jail administrator at the sheriff's office. I've been doing that job for over 20 years, dealing with budgets and personnel and county commissioners, Randall, and
It's a historic book. It's really.
anyway, I graduated from Grand Valley State University. My family and I, my 6 kids live in 3rd Ward here in the city of Coldwater. So just want to introduce myself. If you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me.
All right, good luck to you. Any other public comments at this time? Seeing none, any unfinished business at council level?
Yes, I have a quick question. Recently read an article regarding the opioid settlements. Has there been any more information regarding what we are receiving and what we intend to use with it? It doesn't need to be discussed now, but can we
Yeah.
add it on a
Yeah,
future agenda
I
if
can
possible?
report back. So we've gotten a couple, so our portion is pretty small, and we're banking it at the moment. And then I'll have to bring it to you as to what we use it for. But right now, we have begun receiving distributions of it, and we'll have to have a discussion as to what you would use it for.
Thank you.
Any other unfinished business? Any new business at council level? We will adjourn for 2 or 3 minutes, take a little break, and then we'll conduct our interview with our candidate for city attorney. So we are adjourned.